copy of the book at the very end of the session. So, and it is available through Red Leaf Press. So, and here is my contact information. And I think Yvonne is going to post, there is a handout that goes with this session, and she will post the link to it in the chat. And it would be good if all of you have your cell phones nearby, because as I do introductions and introduce myself a little bit, it gives you a chance to get it, because we're going to do some polling through an app called Mentimeter. So if you have your cell phone, then I'll give you the instructions on how to do that. But I just wanted to introduce myself to you and let you know I started in the classroom many years ago. I was a preschool teacher. And then in the mid-'80s, I started working with the adults that work with the children. And in the late '80s, around 1988, I started my company, Horizons in Learning, and have been working with the adults since then. For about the last 20 years, I've been working particularly with coaches and leaders in the field. I also have a Train the Trainer program. But I started to develop and work with, develop a coaching model about 20 years ago, and have been kind of tweaking it over the years as we go along. So I want to know, and I guess the other introduction I'll make is that what brought me to coaching was I was training, and I spent most of when I worked with the adults, but I also discovered that training didn't work. People didn't change their behavior based on a training. And the research shows that information alone does not change behavior. So as I started to research what really makes a difference in changing people's actual behaviors is when I found out about coaching, because I started to research what's that actually going to take, right? And that's when I started to realize coaching combined with training increases from about 5% implementation to up to 95% implementation when you combine the two. So there's some good research showing the importance and value of coaching to actually impact what I call sticky change. And sticky change is change that lasts over time. So now's the time to get your cell phone, because I want to know a little bit about who you are. So when you go get your cell phone, type in www.menti.com in the purple banner on the top of this slide. And I want you to go there, and then it will ask for a code, and you put the code in, and the code is 5231-0617. And when you put that in, you will see this question, and then you get to answer the question. And leave your Mentimeter connected that way, because I'll be doing some polling like this throughout the session. And all you'll have to do is say, go to the next slide. You don't have to re-put in everything unless you want to. So anyways, go there now and enter the information about who are you? Are you a coach? Are you a program or site director or a principal? Are you an administrator? Oh, here. The code is, I have to start the show, so let me try that. Oh, you know what? You're right. They changed the code on me. So here is, I'm going to change it in the, I'm going to stop sharing. The code is 9680-8263. 9680-8263. Let's give that I'm going to stop share, and I'm going to go to this page, and I'm going to okay, put the new code in, and it's 9680-8263. Okay. Now it's waiting for you to open it. Okay. So I am now going to, oops, where did my slideshow go? Sorry, guys. I have to repeat to myself quite frequently that um, technology is my friend. So here we are. I don't know why it says the voting is closed. Okay, we are having technological difficulty. And I am gonna, I'm not quite sure what the best way to handle this. So you know what I'm gonna ask you to do is, why don't you, I'm just gonna call it, and do you guys know how to raise your Zoom hand in reactions? And when I call the roll, why don't you raise your Zoom hand and I can start to see how many of you are which role. So let's talk about how many of you are actually a practicing coach. Go to the reactions in your Zoom and you raise your hand, your Zoom hand, if you're a practicing coach. I'm seeing you starting to come in there. Okay. I got a goodly amount of you. Looks like you're still coming. All right. So that's good. Okay, so it looks like there's maybe 20, 25 of you. How many of you are a program? You guys lower your hands. Those of you who raised your hand to be the coach, lower your hands, just toggle the same button and put your hand down. And then how many of you are a program or site director? Okay, not too many of you. A handful, a dozen maybe. Okay, you guys can put your hands down. How many of you are an administrator? Oh, we got lots of you. 2, 4, 6, 8. So it looks kind of like so far the bulk of you are administrators. All righty. You can put your hands down. Are there any family, parent advocates, a parent educator? Ooh, more of you than I thought I'd see. If you didn't put your hand down as an administrator, be sure to go back to reactions and lower your hand. A lot of parent advocates. Okay. How many of you are adult educators or, college professors or trainers in the adult educator role? We got a smattering of you, another dozen or so. Oh, here that's climbing up. How many of you are in some other category? We'll call it other. Everybody put their hands down again. Okay, good. And now it's starting, the Mentimeter is starting to show. So I can now share my screen with you and you can see the Mentimeter results. Do you see the Mentimeter results, Yvonne?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. So now you can see our clump of people and how they're showing up. And you guys can lower your hands in the Zoom. Thank you for being flexible with me. So maybe half of you have answered the questions, but it looks like the bulk of the group is coaches and administrators, which is helpful for me to see. Okay, and then the next question, I'm going to open the next question. And the next question is, how many years have you been coaching? And if you're an administrator and you don't actually coach, then say 0 to 3. If you're an administrator and you do practice coaching, then put in how many years you've actually been practicing coaching in particular. So the next slide, as I said, and you've got to just remember that we're working with the okay. So most of you, it looks like we have are fairly new. We either have really new people or really experienced people. It's a wide range here in this group. So we have really experienced folks, or we've got some new folks. And nowadays, I'm finding that to be the case more often because we have got an effort in our field to be bringing in more coaches. So not too surprised about that. Okay, let's see here. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I'm going to go on to, I'm going to share a different screen, a new share, go back to the PowerPoint. And go back to the slideshow. Okay, so here's the agenda for the day. And we're going to talk about what is a coach as a change agent and what is transformational coaching and what is cultivating continuous quality improvement mean. And then we're going to have some time for questions, insights, and a breakout group for us to process and do some reflecting about this. So let's talk a little bit about what does it mean to cultivate a culture of change and being a coach as a change agent. It's a bit different than I think what traditional coaching and transactional coaching models have usually presented to us. So certainly to cultivate change, which is the point of, coaching, is we've got to build trust, and we actually have to, in ourselves, foster curiosity rather than rely on what we know. We have to empty our little teapot out and let in curiosity and let go of what we think we know. We have to fertilize, and I think the fertilizing is actually reflection. Helping people learn how to reflect is the main role of coaching. And that's how we really cultivate people changing, is through them reflecting, as opposed to us telling them what to do. We have to, as coaches, if we want to cultivate change, actually trust the timing of the person. Just like with gardening, you can't pull up a plant faster than it grows. And we can't do that with children. So the same way that we have to individualize for children and trust their pacing and their timing, we have to do for adults as well. Our other big job to cultivate change is to weed out the challenges. The first part of that is to actually identify what the challenges and barriers are. And that's a unique part of my coaching model, is identifying what the barriers and challenges are. Then we actually have to be with people while they're changing. Changing is dirty business, and change does not, it's scary, it's a risk-taking. People rarely implement their action plans perfectly right out of the gate. So we actually have to do and be with them and help them reflect about their experimenting and refining what they're doing. It's a journey and a process. And then we have to help people tolerate the discomfort of change. We have to help normalize that change is a process that will predictably include discomfort. And we have to do all of this in order to harvest what I said earlier was sticky change. Okay, if you want it to last more than they just do it when you're around and they actually embed this as a practice, then it's going to be really important for them to integrate this themselves. So being an agent of change is really a shift in perspective from being a content expert to being a change agent. I think most of us who got hired as coaches, that's our formal title, or sometimes you're called a specialist or a quality improvement specialist or consultant. We have lots of titles, but most of us got hired because whoever's doing the hiring, your funder, your agency, wanted somebody who was really well versed in best practices. They knew the content. And if you're connected at all to the QRIS efforts in whatever state you're in, one of the things that we have learned over the last 12 years of coaching and QRIS being implemented is that early on, there was a lot of overemphasis on the R in the QRIS, on the rating. And a lot of our early programs created a culture where what they were doing was coaching to the rating. It was kind of like teaching to the test. They did all their coaching related to assessments and what hoops do you have to jump through to get the rating, but that isn't what fosters continuous quality improvement. Because I don't know about you, but I know lots of providers and centers and programs and family child care providers who have good ratings, but I don't see the quality because it's not sticky change. You know, I have a great story about I coach a lot of coaches, and I have a coaching team that I facilitate who specifically work with family child care providers, and they were they had this one coach told me she had a coach who she had a provider who knew her FECRS, her environmental rating scale assessor, was going to be coming sometime in the next 4 to 8 weeks. So she went down the street to her local friend, child care provider down the street, and asked if she could borrow her multicultural materials, because she knew that was something she didn't have a lot of in her environment, and she knew she had to pass that check mark on the FECRS. So she brought it back to her program. The assessor came in. She got that checked off as yes, she got that. So she got a fairly good, example of a good rating, the FECRS rating. But then after the rater had left and she'd gotten her assessment, she took all those materials back. So those children were not benefiting from them. So it wasn't sticky change. That quality didn't stay in the program. So that's what I mean by, if we're really going to cultivate sustainable sticky change, it's changes that impact children ongoingly, not to pass a rating assessment. And so one of our jobs as a change agent is really to recognize in ourselves, in our own practices, as well as working with our providers and our coachees, that change is a process and a journey. It's not a destination. Focusing on getting a rating is a destination approach. So becoming a change agent instead of a content expert is going to be facilitating ongoing change. And transformation happens through practicing reflection, awareness, and intentional actions to change habits. Because if we're really going to be getting quality, people have to be changing their professional habits. We all do, including us. So one of my things that I would say is I consider it our professional responsibility to know thyself, and we have to walk the talk. Are you having daily, weekly, quarterly reflective practices built into your professional practices. Because if you're not practicing reflection about how do you know whether what you're doing is working or not, then you're not modeling and walking the talk for your providers. We want them thinking about this, reflecting about their practices. And if we aren't doing the same about our own professional practices, if you're an administrator, I would be looking at how do you know whether you're supervising and you're administrating programs is working. We have to practice building reflection into our everyday professional practices. And so shifting our mindset from content expert to change agent, we're going to behave differently working with people if we do that. And yes, we're going to actually have to set up in our relationships with our coachees, helping them shift that, particularly for the providers or the whoever you're coaching. You might be coaching coaches, I don't know. But whoever your coachee is, if they come to you and they're expecting good ideas, answers, and solutions to their problems, then you've really been being a content expert. And I call that technical assistance and consulting. And that's a very different professional development strategy. Not unuseful, but it's just different from coaching. In another workshop I teach, we have to slide the continuum. Sometimes we have to teach a little. Sometimes we do TA and consulting a little. Sometimes we do mentoring, and sometimes we do coaching. But if you're doing coaching, you want to be making sure you make the distinction between coaching and technical assistance and TA. Those get easily collapsed. And so another workshop, another day, but those two need to get collapse, because we have to individualize and to really help people learn how to be reflective. TA doesn't do that. TA just tells them the answers. We tend to enable them more than they need. So I always say the relevant analogy is if you're a classroom teacher and you have a child who is a young child, a toddler, let's say, learning how to pull up their pants after going to the bathroom, if they keep waddling out of the bathroom with their pants around their ankles and they go, teacher, teacher, and we come over and we pull their pants up for them, we give them the answer, we help them, we tell them what to do, we do it for them, then they're going to keep doing that. If we want them to take initiative and become problem-solving thinkers for themselves, we have to start scaffolding back our intervention strategies. So in that regard, if you've got coachees coming to you and they just want you to give them the answers, it's more because we have been acting as content expert and we have been pulling up their panties for them. So what you need to do is scale up that continuum where you do more reflection of, well, what part of this can you do by yourself? With a child, you would say, can you pull up your pants and I'll help zip? Or do you want me to do the pull up and you do the zip? And then we tailor it back and then we come near them and then we just talk them through it. So we scaffold them toward independence. Well, in coaching, we want to do the same thing. And as a change agent, that's what we do, is we scaffold them. Our strategies reflect how their actions will be. So that's what it means to facilitate the change process, is we stop being the givers of the content and we start being the facilitators of reflection and the facilitators of them doing the thinking. We be a guide by their side, but not the encyclopedia and best practices directory. So the power of reflection as a habit takes time. Most research says it takes at least 3 months of continual focus to change a habit. And that's with consistent focus. So that's why 90 days is really about what it takes to change habits. And, it's often why when we're looking at quality and ongoing, we've got to keep that ongoing reflection going, not being assessment or rating driven. They have to be making intentional decisions, ongoing every day, and being thoughtful and mindful about it. So our role as the change agent is to normalize the challenges of the change process. We have to tell them it's going to get hard and it's okay. We have to help them foster the toleration of the discomfort of learning and growing, which means getting comfy with making mistakes. I can't tell you how many people I both teach and coach who have a real serious intolerance of making mistakes. They have an attitude that they have to be perfect, that they can't make it, they have to do it right or they can't do it wrong. That attitude is going to need some flipping in order for them to have ongoing change in behavior. And my experience about coaching is most of what needs to get flipped in people isn't skill, it's attitude. It's lack of awareness and it's attitude that they need some flipping in order to get their habits to change. We have to actually stop being such leaders and start to be what I call followers. We have to practice the art of followership. We need to individualize through followership. That's another way of saying we have to individualize for each one of our coachees. They have their own pacing. And that's where curiosity comes in, because how we know how to help them is not because of what we know. We got to get curious about what they do know, what they don't know, what are their strengths, what is their challenge, where are they lacking motivation, all of that. Motivation is a big barrier for a lot of people, and that's where we have to facilitate as a change agent. So cultivating an attitude of getting better at getting better, both in ourselves as practitioners and in our coachees, is really what we need to be fostering as a change agent. Oops. So Ann Terrell, who is the current president of NACCE, she has a great quote. She says, "The practices of self-reflection and self-care are critical in these times to ensure that we can be healthy and whole in our service to those who need us." And so I think that, and most of the quotes that I am putting up on the slides are in your handout. That one happens to be on page 1 in your handout. And really, change impacting quality is reflection of ourselves as whole beings, and how we bring who we are to what we do. Whether you're a classroom teacher, a coach, an administrator, a parent educator, can have a profound impact on our ability to truly serve the children, families, and the staff with whom we work. We don't compartmentalize ourselves. If you're stressed out at home, I promise you it's bleeding into work. And given COVID, stress is one of the largest barriers people are dealing with, and it's our job as a change agent to help people deal with stress. I love Flattery's quote. It's kind of a theme for our training here today. Coaching is not about telling people what to do, but giving them a chance to examine what they are doing in light of their intentions. And so I think this is really important, because as a change agent, we help them examine what they are doing in light of their intentions instead of telling them what to do. So let's talk a little bit about what is transformational coaching. And that's the approach that I use, that I present in my book, Transformational Coaching for Early Childhood Educators. And mainstream coaching, most of mainstream coaching, and I'd say most of the coaching that I've run into, even in early childhood, tends to be transactional coaching. Transactional coaching focuses on identifying new actions to achieve goals. Nothing wrong with that, but it tends to get myopic in perspective, and it's the kind of thinking that gets us only focused on the QRAS, and particularly with the big focus on the R. If all we're doing at the goals and the action plans, we're missing where most of the action is needed in order to help people really change, which is in the what are the barriers and obstacles, what is happening when they're practicing, what are their discomfort levels, how are they actually are they actually having time to reflect, that we as coaches are the infrastructure for them to practice learning about coaching. I mean, about reflecting. So we help people and programs both become skillful in the art of self-reflection. Not so much the answers to everything, but how to reflect, how to become a critical thinker, how to be a problem-solving thinker. We help them to question and examine their foundational perspectives, values, beliefs, intentions, and if you're working with a program, the organizational culture. And this is what transformational coaching does. We still do goals and action plans, but we stretch wider and we go way deeper. We also help people examine how their beliefs influence the way that they actually interpret, the way that they give meaning to things, how they interpret their reality of what's happening actually impacts the choices they make around actions and habits and practices. For example, if you've got somebody who thinks that they have to do things right or they can't do them wrong, they're going to make lots of kinds of decisions in their daily practices that probably are fear-based and not really taking the time to think things through. And so we have to help them see that what are they doing in light of their intentions. So certainly having goals and action plans, but rarely in my coaching conversations is that where we start. We really start in other areas first. We need to facilitate reflection and discussion. We have to assess successes. I can't tell you how many people in early childhood can't tolerate looking at what is working. They only look at what's wrong. And just that's an attitude shift, an awareness shift. Helping them explore what the actual, identify and clarify what the obstacles are, and creating specific action plans to deal with the obstacles, not just their goals. And then to actually be with them like teachers are with children, to be a guide by their side while they're implementing in the messy zone of trying out their action plans. And it's also our job to help assist in the data collection, helping them see their own professional story of themselves as a professional. And I'd say that sometimes the job of the coach is to do the storytelling and help them see their journey of change and to document both the process, not just the outcomes. So this is a visual of the same thing. Transformational coaching is really about helping people through our inquiry to promote and expand their awareness and achieve sticky change by examining beliefs and assumptions that feed their thoughts and feelings, which would include their attitudes, that then create their behaviors, actions, and habits, which are getting the results they're getting. So if they're not getting the results they want with a child about what they're doing, their own practicing, whatever they're doing, we actually have to go deeper. So these yellow boxes are the zone of where we, as transformational coaches, as change agents, start to really spend a lot of our time and energy. So I like this quote from 0 to 3. Given the emotionally evocative nature and the complexity of work with very young children and families who are vulnerable, it's imperative that practitioners across disciplines have time to pause and reflect. It's the antidote. It's what we need. Pausing to think. Thinking takes time. And that's really the ultimate goal of coaches, is to give people time to think. So one of the things that I would say here is that we need to be mindful of, as coaches, watch out for our expertise and thinking that we know, because it actually can interfere with us being authentically curious and inquire. And where do we start in a coaching conversation? We start with where people are, and if we're not inquiring, we don't know that. And I can tell you from my experience, the result of an assessment is not where they are. Where they really are about their awareness, their attitudes, their sense of efficacy. All of that is going to matter way more than the assessment. Or another way of saying it is that why is the assessment as high or low as it is has something to do with what are their beliefs, their thoughts, and their feelings about themselves as practitioners. So our job is to say what I say, look under the hood. So look under the hood of your coachee. Find out what's making them tick, because that's where we have to go to really show up. So I think that I've said most of this, that we want to actually clarify their motivation and willingness to change. We have helped them broaden their awareness, and we foster the metacognitive to think about their thinking so they can make the choices. And again, increase their ability to consciously choose and change their own performance to achieve their desired outcomes, right? To make informed decision based on data and documentation. Help them identify what their assumptions, fears, and judgments are that are getting in the way. And so for a coach, choosing relationship over control is all about shifting to a focus of really trying to understand the coachee's perspective instead of attempting to convince him or her to make a different decision or choice. This is, I think, the heart of transformational coaching. Our job is to understand their perspective rather than to be giving them the different decisions, ideas, choices of what they could be doing. And that requires we behave differently. If we really want that sticky change to happen, we have to look at both the product and the process. We have to go beyond thinking that just an action and having a goal is going to get people where they need to be, sustained over time. This is my coaching groomer framework for coaching for change model. It has 7 components. Now, going into this model is a different workshop, but I want to point out that to get sticky change, people need to think about all 7 of these components. There is no starting point because every person you coach is going to have a different place they start. The groomer acronym, I had to just make up a word about how do we groom for change. And when I started out identifying this model, all my words started with vowels. So I had to come up with other words, which is why mobilize, which is actions, I had to change to the word mobilize. And that's where we have action plans, right? So the kinds of areas that people need to think about, and not in any particular order. They need to think about the reality, where they are, their current circumstance, the context, what's happening, what's working, what's not. They need to be able to identify what are some of the barriers and obstacles. And in the middle, you'll see I've made an acronym of the most common barriers and challenges I found people have. I don't care what industry you're in. I've coached in corporate America and I've coached plumbers. Believe it or not, I know nothing about plumbing, but I'm a good transformational coach, and then I can help them reflect about what they know. I could help them achieve higher results and change their behaviors because I helped them reflect about what they know. I didn't have to know the skill set. I don't have to know all that. And so in that regard, knowing best practices and having your if you've been a classroom teacher and you're coaching teachers, sometimes that's actually going to be a barrier to you being good at being a change agent. We have to bite our tongue. We have to self-regulate because every ounce of our being wants to tell them what to do to save them the suffering, but that's not where learning happens. So helping them identify the most common barriers to change are a lack of awareness, negative or limiting attitudes, lack of motivation or conflicting motivation, emotions or lack of self-regulation, stress or lack of resilience and lack of skills. And I always thought to unlock these, I thought skills was going to be it when I started coaching, but I've experienced in my world, less than 20% of the barriers are skill related. People also have to identify what do they want, where do they want to go, and how are they going to know when they get there, the goals. They do have to come up with action plans, both goal-placed action plans and plans to bust specific barriers. They have to go up to options. They have to be able to do what I call brainstorm thinking. Most people's first action plan don't work because we actually have to brainstorm around things. We have to do possibility, what engineers call ideation. And then we have to go try it out and experiment, right? And so in the experimenting is what engineers call prototyping. You have to go try out your ideas. And that's where so many of the mistakes happen, which is why the image I have is chemistry blowing up, right? Because that's where they need so much of you to be by a guide by their side. And then we do some refining. Sometimes we end up with a solution, but a lot of times we just go right back into this as a continuous quality improvement reflection. It isn't just get there and stop. So change impacts quality. It's important that we continually reflect. And most people in our field, I've discovered, are not very practiced in reflecting and having control over change. So they're not used to recognizing that they have efficacy, they can make a difference, that they actually do have choice. And we have to meet staff where they are and scaffold through the process and support systems. I'm finding that a lot of our coaching programs where the problem isn't at a program. It can be at a program, but it's a lot in our initiatives, our coaching initiatives, on how we have set up what we think coaches need to be doing in that transactional mode. And we're really not getting the ongoing sustaining change that we want to see. So I think it's a state level, initiative level change. And if we're not working with the directors of programs and only working with the teachers, we're never going to see the change we want. We have to do it at a systems level. So again, helping them overcome their challenges. We have to do a lot of hand holding. We have to help them reframe a challenge and see it as a normal part of the change process. Okay? So as we keep going forward, that being able to tolerate the discomfort is part of the biggest journey, I think, that we have to go through as coaches. And a lot of them feel unsure. This is where in transactional coaching, a lot of our coaching started with doing observations and giving them feedback. I never start coaching there. I always start about where do they think they're strong and where do they think they have room for improvement. I always start with what do they think quality looks like. I want to know what's under their hood. I want to know what they think way before I'm going to start telling them what I think. So one of the things, I love this picture, change requires facilitation because change is a messy business. So this is why we need to be a change agent, not just a content expert, because to actually make what is the old behavior and get it to the new behavior, it's a process. So we have to be much like a preschool teacher in facilitating learning and change, not just telling children what to do. We need to do the same thing with the adults. We have to facilitate through that. And I would say in the conclusion of this section here is there are 6 qualities that are going to get ongoing sticky change. People need to know how to reflect. They need to increase their mindfulness. They need to have a connection to their passion and desire to overcome issues of motivation. We need to help them get there. We need to help people become able to respond to the demands and the needs for change and how to manage their self-regulation and not get overwhelmed. People need to be resilient so they can respond. and they need to have skill mastery. So these are the 6 qualities. Now, I'm going to suggest to you that we actually have to be practicing this. You as a coach, that means that one of the things you need to be doing is you need to be reflecting. You need to be looking at. We have to walk the talk here, okay? So we need to develop these 5 qualities within ourselves. Take the initiative to lead and be the model. And then you're going to have your own stories to talk about with them about how hard change is. And you're going to be so much more sensitive to that. I just want to change here. And does anybody have any immediate questions? You can type some of these in the chat if you do, or perhaps just an insight. I just want to do a little touching in with you. And the next thing we're going to do is we're really going to talk about what is continuous quality improvement. Okay, so before we change the topic, I just want to check in. How are you guys doing? Any questions, comments, or even just an aha insight you're having? Nothing in the Zoom chat? Okay, thank you, Arnita. All right, then if nobody's gonna pop up, or if there's not a need here, then I'm gonna just keep going. All right, this is being helpful. That's good to know. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about what is continuous quality improvement. And, it's a term we throw around in our field, and what I want to know is you can go to your Mentimeter now. And again, go to menti.com. The code is the same, 9680-8263, or just click the next question. And I need to change the show to open up. Hold on, I have to stop share. And I have to share the Mentimeter, which is here. And okay, now you should have it open, and you should be able to. Yvonne, are you seeing the Mentimeter results, or are you seeing the slideshow?
No, neither. There's nothing up right now.
Okay, let me do this then. Resume. Stop. Let me just stop and start again. So you guys just type into the Mentimeter and it will start to show up. You see it now?
Yes, your slide is up now.
All right.
The Mentimeter is up.
Okay, great. So you're beginning to see the words that you're using to describe continuous quality improvement, ongoing, inquiry, right, reflection, process, review, partnering, curiosity, trust.
So Constant, the slide went away. I just want to make sure you're aware of that, of the Mentimeter.
What do you mean it went away?
It's not there. It's just, yeah.
Okay.
It was just saying discussion response. It was a slide.
Do you see it now?
Now it's there.
Okay, great. Thank you for being my eyes, Yvonne.
Sure, you're welcome.
Okay. So we've got tolerating discomfort, mindfulness, ongoing process, reflection. Yep. And I think I'm glad this word ongoing is staying in the middle. It doesn't always do that. Because continuous quality improvement is you're not just doing a cram for the QRAS assessment tests. This is what we were looking at. What are we doing all the time? And it becomes really an ongoing process. Okay, not linear. I love that one. Scaffolding, maintenance, cyclical, looking for strengths. Okay, looks like most of you who are gonna have entered, so I am going to go back to the PowerPoint. You see the PowerPoint now?
Yes.
Okay, so you're right. The CQI is not a destination, it's a process and a journey, and it's a shift from a focus on just an end product. It's a shift from externally driven compliance motivation to being internally motivated, both as a program and as individuals. And hold on here. It's really about connecting all efforts, assessments, quality demands to and benefits for children and families. I think one of the things that I find happens so often from coaches is they're working in these QRIS or quality initiatives, but what they're not doing is helping them understand what item on an Eckers or on the class, what's it got to do with children? Our job as coaches is to help them think about, what are they doing in light of their intention? And their intention has probably got something to do with children, but that's not necessarily how we interact with them about the assessments or the individual indicators on assessments. Our job is to translate into this. What's this impact have to do? Why would it matter if you behave like this for children? We want to keep bringing it back to children and ensuring that that happens over time, right? So I love this image. I've just found this new image about the ongoing cycle of process, that it doesn't ever stop, right? We get feedback, we plan, we build, and we do integrating, trying things out, we try it again, we operate, we operationalize it, we systematize it, and we just keep going and going, right? And this is true for a person, for a program, for an initiative, for an agency. We're providing the best possible services and outcomes for children, families, and staff. And my way of saying it is we're getting better at getting better. There's never an end to this, right? And so I've got to move my little thing here. Hold on. Ann Mitchell says one major purpose of a QRIS is to recognize quality and promote a culture of continuous improvement among providers. The rating is not a destination. It's a set of benchmarks along a pathway of ongoing improvement. And I think this is another way of looking at what's the difference between QRIS and CQI. Is watch out for the transactional coaching approach at being the content expert, as we tend to focus on those stars for the rating and we tend to give them fish, as opposed to the getting better all the time under CQI and transformational coaching that fosters this and being a change agent, is we become the one who teaches them how to fish rather than keep giving them a fish. And Billy Young at Build in an article, I love this definition and I kind of highlight it in yellow. It's a long definition, but the parts that really matter is CQI is a process which ensures that organizations and their partners are systemic and intentional about improving services and practices and increasing positive outcomes for children and families. CQI is optimally seated in an organizational culture that has a common vision, shared values and beliefs, and a commitment to ongoing quality improvement. CQI is reflective, cyclical, and data-driven. It is proactive, not reactive. It goes beyond merely meeting externally applied standards and moves the lever for change internally, both internal to your person, to your program, or your agency or initiative. Participants control the process themselves through continuous learning and a dedication to getting better at getting better. So I think that many of you, your words that you put in our Mentimeter reflect that you're understanding this, and I'm so happy to see that. The key to lasting really change is continuing to reflect about how have we been impacted by our personal life experiences, what our foundational values and beliefs are. I call that our frame of reference, which certainly includes your culture, your ethnicity, social economic experiences, educational experiences. All of those, if with our endeavors toward equity, are really important to be building in and taking into consideration. Integrating with we have to take that personal and our foundational beliefs and integrate it with our professional experiences. And we also have professional beliefs. We have beliefs about what's best for children, and helping, that's what I call about the change agent, helps people tell their professional learning story and what it is, how they are as a person, and how they are, and do their personal values collide with professional expectations and values. That happens a lot. So we need to help people deal with that. And how do we make sure we're creating sharing voices and perspectives as part of our cultural foundation, whether that's a program, an agency, or not? Because we're going to have differences of perspective, and we have to tolerate the discomfort of having disagreement and not having everybody agree all the time. That's just going to be part of what it's going to take for us as an industry to get successful at having ongoing reflection. Peter Berger says, unlike puppets, we have the possibility of stopping in our movements and looking up and perceiving the machinery by which we have been moved. In this act lies the first steps toward freedom. And I think the foundation of freedom is choice. So my interpretation of this quote is we need to know what our frame of reference is, both personally and professionally, in order to look deeper into what's driving my actions and behaviors so that I can see where I have choice. Because I have to make the choices to change the habits. I have to choose what I'm thinking, because every thought in your head is by no means truth. So again, we have to give others a chance to examine what they are doing in light of their intentions, being a change agent and not getting stuck in just that content expertise role. And so I think in this regard, it's really important for us to be thinking about what change do you personally have to make to shift from that content expert to a change agent? Because that's probably not going to be comfy for you. I know most people that I'm coaching and teaching this to is it's hard. It's hard to ask a question rather than to give an answer. It's hard to get curious and not get focused on what's the right coaching question to ask. Because if you lead by curiosity, you don't have to worry about a right question. So what we really need to do is reflect on what you need to change to get better at getting better. In order for them to do that, if you've walked this path, you're going to be a better coach or administrator or supervising, helping them to do the same. So here are some reflective questions for you. Are you letting curiosity lead, or are you letting your I know already lead? How well do you tolerate change and making mistakes and being vulnerable? And how do you know whether what you're doing is working or not? Do you have your own intentional, professional, reflective practices and routines that you practice regularly? Do you practice systems thinking? How are you as an individual impacting the people and the programs you work with at a systemic level? And what are your patterns of success? And what are your own patterns of where you tend to make mistakes or fall a little short of your own behaviors that you do? So, and you've got those questions in the handout. So now's the time I'd like to put you in breakout rooms, and I want to give you the opportunity to have some discussion. And Yvonne, let's put some questions. And if you want to, you can simply unmute and ask me. Otherwise, why don't you all just, if you got any questions, and I'm sorry, it turned out in the breakout rooms, some of you got in rooms with people who didn't show up and you were in your room by yourself. And I'm sorry that that was your experience. And some of you had to do your whole breakout session by typing because people didn't have microphones. So my apologies on that. Okay, so thank you for that. And it doesn't look like we have a bunch of questions. So let's go to the next slide. And the next slide in the Mentimeter is, what was your blinding flash of the obvious, or what was your aha for today? What is your takeaway? What do you? Yeah, more reflection. Great. Thank you. Yeah, the distinction, several of the groups I went to, is not confusing TA with coaching. Listen, and boy, isn't that the truth? Listening is really the cornerstone of coaching. Great. Becoming the follower. Thank you for that. Yeah, find out what they think before you tell them. Slowing down and understanding it's a process. I know sometimes as coaches, we think we have to get them through to the finish line really fast. And in that process, what we do is we actually shut down thinking and reflection, which is unfortunate. Yeah, one of the things to make sure that we are not, let's make sure that we as the coach are not the barrier and challenge to them actually getting where they need to go. And sometimes that happens because we end up being so enabling that we get in the way, or we become the pressure source. And the last thing we want to do is really become the source of their stress and pressure. Brenda said that in the chat, that what do you think quality looks like? And what part do you think you do well? Yes, and making that distinction between transformational coaching and transactional coaching. It is an important, and I don't think most people know about that. We don't talk about a lot. A lot of the, what I call practice-based coaching, it tends to be transactional in the way we set it up. Often it's starting with observation, give them feedback. And we can do that. I don't say not to do that. It's just there's a much wider basket of what it is that we want to do as coaches. And I think my coaching model, I have a colleague who has talked about how my groomer framework for thinking is like a nest that all the other fidelity models go into. So if you're doing pyramid coaching or teaching strategies or class coaching, all of them can fit inside a transformational and the groomer approach. You're just giving it a deeper, wider container, and you're going beyond just the right answers for that particular initiative. These are great comments, everyone. Thank you. Seems like a lot of you have come in. So what I do want to do right now is I want to, let me stop sharing here. Are you seeing me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So what I'd like to do right now, as a matter of fact, is I want to give Yvonne a chance to talk about the evaluation, and then after the evaluation and her giving you the link, I'm going to do the raffle drawing, which would which will happen. So go ahead.
Okay, I am going to put the survey in the message in the chat box right now. And thank you everyone for attending. And there you go. And we are recording this session, so it will be uploaded shortly to the website. So you will have access to that. You will receive an email when it's ready, but we will upload it to the website, the recording of today's session.
Okay, thank you. And I have also put in a opt-in link in the chat. If you'd like to get on my mailing list or contact me about my services or host a training, you can go to the opt-in form, and I put that link in there. So when you're done with your evaluation, you can complete that form and I'll get it, and then I'll contact you and I'll put you on my mailing list. I have lots of new courses that are coming up. I've got new products I'm developing. I offer a 38-hour transformational coaching for early childhood educators that's based on the book. I have one coming up in the summer. So I am going to do the drawing now for the book. So who was the person we were going to have pick the number?
I have it.
You have the number?
Chris is going to pick the number.
Okay.
Yes, 88.
88. So we're going to find out who number 88 is on the participant list. And then you will be, Yvonne will say your name, and you will get this book. Red Leaf Press will mail you the book. And I just need you to text me privately, unless you want everybody to know your address. You need to text me privately and tell me what address we should mail the book to.
Okay, we're ready.
Should we do the yes?
Yeah, drum roll.
Drum roll. Okay.
And today's winner is Katie Nestor of Douglas County Early Childhood Counselor. Are you there, Katie?
Get out of town. I'm going to buy a lottery ticket.
Yay!
Yay!
And I'm your fellow Coloradan.
Where are you from, Katie?
I'm in Aurora.
You're in Aurora. Are you a coach?
Yep, for Douglas County.
Well, my course in Colorado is one of the courses that gets you certified.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes. You're not RBPD, training of trainers.
No, I'm the other course.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So anyways, why don't you type directly to me in the chat, and I'll get your address, and I will have Red Leaf mail you the book.
Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Yay.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. And Carrie, you asked me a question and in the chat, and I'm just going to say your question was a good question, is when you have limited time as a coach, how do you go deeper and reflection? And I don't care how much time you have, always start with reflection, because the bottom line is telling them what to do doesn't work. So, and it's a big question, and if you would like to talk with me separately, feel free to email me and I can get back to you. Oh, good. Katie, I got your address. I thank you for that. And where do you work? What agency, Katie?
Douglas County. So.
Oh, good.
Early childhood counselor. Yep. And I was with Arapahoe for some time, and Robin Levy is a colleague. So.
Oh, good. Yeah, she used to teach this course with me.
Yep.
She's moved, back to Pyramid.
She's, healthy childcare.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for all your attention. And I just wish you the best out there. If you have and want to talk or anything else, feel free to email me. My website is my name, www.constanthine.com, and you can always just go there to email me. And my email is my name, constant@constanthine.com. So you got all these ways to get in touch with me. You've got it in the handout if you were able to download the handout. So thank you for being with me today and for being at the conference.
Yes, and thank you, Constant. We really enjoyed your session. Thank you for a great session. Thank you for the prize. I would just want to remind everyone that handouts for this session is located on the website and the survey. So if you didn't get the link here, it is on the website, and we will upload the recording to the website as well so that you can go back and review the data. So I do want to thank everyone for attending the session today and remind you of the upcoming session that we have today at 3:15, sponsored by Discount School Supply. We will have Mr. Steve Spangler, the STEM scientist. So we look forward to seeing everyone there, and don't forget to fill out the survey form. Thank you for attending, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, Yvonne, for your support.
You're welcome. Thank you.